presentation, the top 14 ways that you can prepare your HubSpot inbound campaigns for 2014. The goal was to get 14 different strategies that help you attract strangers, convert visitors into leads, close leads into customers, and delight customers for long-term retention. That's the 15-second version of what HubSpot calls its inbound methodology. And if you talk to anyone that's worked for HubSpot since very early on, like 2006, 2007, 2008, this used to be a 20-page white paper, and they've now distilled it down to a single slide. If you could see that a little closer, you see under Attract, it includes blogging, keywords, and social media. Under Converting website visitors into leads, you'll find forms, calls to action, and landing pages, closing leads into customers, using email, using a new tool called Signals. If you haven't heard of Signals, just like that You Ought to Know video, write that down. Go check out Signals. It is a game changer in how you convert leads into new customers. And workflows, marketing automation that helps take top-of-the-funnel sales leads and take them through the sales funnel in a much more accelerated fashion. So, for example, a long cycle B2B customer that might have taken 12, 18, 24 months before to close, by being smart about developing content for unique buyer personas and developing content that's optimized for each different stage of the sales cycle, you can really see a huge impact in getting people through your sales funnel quicker, closing sales faster, and seeing ROI much more rapidly. In terms of delight, using events, using a tool called Social Inbox that helps you monitor. If you ever notice when you're looking at Twitter, there seems to be a massive amount of data coming right at you. What Social Inbox does is it listens for people that are currently in your database and highlights what they're talking about on Twitter. So if you just want to pay attention to what your customers are talking about on Twitter, Social Inbox can help you do that. If you want to pay attention to leads with a certain lead score that are a certain stage of maturity, you can pay attention to that. Tremendously powerful tool. Smart content is largely about personalization. Obviously, we could talk about this slide for quite a bit of time, but just wanted to give you a quick overview. So I asked the people I reached out to on this, and by the way, this is not a canned presentation. This was all hand-researched. The goal was to get about half of the respondents coming from HubSpotters at the Cambridge, Massachusetts headquarters, and the other half of the respondents, about 7 or 8, coming from HubSpot partners. We asked if you could sum up your advice in one sentence, tweet length, on the single most important inbound strategy that if you were here in this room tonight that you would tell attendees. What would it be? So without any further delay, here is who you're going to hear from. Anyone recognize any of the pictures that are up here? I'm curious. Allie.
The CEO, Dharmesh, and Brian.
Yes, upper left-hand corner, you get 2 points. Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah. Anyone else? Excellent. Anyone else? Ringer in the back? Excellent. That's Mark Killen, second in from the right. He runs the HubSpot Academy. For those of you that are currently HubSpot customers, if you are not currently going to all of the classes that Mark currently runs, you are missing out on a tremendously valuable asset to get continuing education right from the convenience of your own webinars. He runs classes probably 2 or 3 weeks out of the month. He just finished up a 3-part series on SEO, and it was amazing. If you missed it, it's all in the archives. Go into your HubSpot software, hit the Academy menu, and look at the webinar archives. That's Mark Killen's, and on the right, that's Sarah Papachristos. So the first strategy, if Brian Halligan, CEO and founder, was here with us tonight, when I asked Brian what's the biggest thing that people should be concentrating on in 2014, he said your success in inbound marketing is much more about the width of your brain than the size of your wallet, the width of your wallet. Can anyone relate to that? Who's experienced the challenge of competing against a competitor that has much bigger pockets than they do, a much bigger marketing budget than they do? Who's had to scrape and scrimp and put things together to come up and work with a much more clever content marketing strategy to outsmart David Goliath kind of battles? Anyone relate to that? Great. So Brian's number one strategy is to think with your brain. Use your brain to try to outsmart much larger competitors with much larger wallets. And a lot of this comes down to knowing your customers extremely well, segmenting and personalizing. Next up, Dharmesh Shah, co-founder and CTO of HubSpot. By the way, Brian and Dharmesh met as grad students at MIT. If you ever have heard the story about HubSpot, a lot of the initial 5 or 10 employees and a lot of the senior management comes from MIT. Very sharp, bright guys. Dharmesh's advice was get comfortable sharing useful information that is uncomfortably honest that you'd want to read yourself. Dharmesh publishes an incredibly popular blog that actually predates the start of HubSpot called On Startups. If you've never heard it before, look it up. It's a fantastic blog for those that are small business owners or entrepreneurs. It has a LinkedIn group that goes along with it as well. Extremely, extremely popular. It's on all the top-ranked small business and entrepreneurial blogging lists. And he shares amazingly intimate, intense details on what goes on about HubSpot with their employees, how they deal with recruiting, how they deal with retention, how they've built a culture. Very, very highly recommended. And Dharmesh and Shah kind of got, Dharmesh, Shah, and Brian Halligan got on the map when they put out a best-selling book a couple years ago called Inbound Marketing. Very highly recommended book that'll give you a crash course in a couple hours on how to implement inbound marketing into your business. Next up, we heard from Mike Volpe, CMO of HubSpot. And when I asked Mike, what should attendees concentrate on in 2014, what's the number one strategy? Blogging. A blog that is non-promotional is the cornerstone of a basic inbound strategy. A blog powers your SEO and powers your social media. Who currently here is blogging? Who currently is blogging at least once a week? Who currently is blogging more than once a week? Who's blogging daily? Give yourself a big round of applause. You know why? Because if you're blogging at least one time, if you're blogging more than once a day, if you're blogging at least twice a day, you have over a 90% chance of acquiring new customers from your blog. 90% chance. Those are pretty good odds. So if you're going to look at a very low-cost strategy to implement into your business, even if you are a one-person company, think about how you can work with guest bloggers. Think about how you can work with freelancers. If you really want to move the needle in a way that costs you next to nothing, in 2014, blog at least twice a day. If you blog twice a day, there's over a 90% chance that after a little bit of time, you will start to acquire customers from your blog. And that's what Mike Volpe had to share with us. Next up, Mark Roberge. That's kind of like Mike... That's Volpe's partner in the other side of the business. Mark heads up marketing, and Mike Volpe heads up marketing, and Mark Roberge heads up sales. And for those of you that come from the sales side of the business or support a sales department, if you want to learn best practices on what has powered HubSpot's really, really rapid growth, read everything and go to every webinar that Mark does. Mark's suggestion, and this is a little different than you would expect to hear from somebody who heads up a large sales organization, is as an executive tackling inbound marketing and the journey, think less about blogging yourself personally and more about hiring a journalist to interview the thought leaders across your company, even if it's a one-person company, and turn those conversations into blog articles. Very few people, including themselves, realize that journalists hold the keys to the future of demand generation. HubSpot actually hired a very prominent journalist as a journalist fellow. I believe his title is Dan Lyons earlier this year. And that's a trend that you're going to be seeing repeated more and more. We saw it a lot in the IT services industry in 2013 and 2012, whereas magazines were shutting down and newspapers were laying off. A lot of senior editors were getting recruited to run corporate newsrooms to build out massive thought leadership blogs among large tech companies. Next up, as I mentioned before, Mark Killens heads up the HubSpot Academy, which is HubSpot's continuing education program. Mark leads and moderates kind of like talk radio style, very, very engaging and entertaining. A series of webinars. He typically puts out probably about 12 or 14 different webinar series over the course of the year, usually 2 or 3 sessions. Most of them are held on Tuesdays from 2 to 3 Eastern Time. They're all recorded. They all give slides, and he brings in the best most prominent thought leaders across a lot of different subject matter areas across HubSpot. There's a new series about to start tomorrow on using inbound storytelling. Highly, highly recommended. If you're currently a HubSpot customer and you do not currently attend these webinars, you're missing out on an enormous opportunity to move the needle forward. So definitely go back, listen to those archives, get involved, listen, participate in the webinars, tweet during the webinars, tweet with the hashtag during the webinars. I know Kristen and I do that on a pretty regular basis, and you'd be amazed. In addition to just meeting people locally, you'll meet a lot of people across the country and across the world that are going through very similar challenges as you are with their inbound marketing. Mark's advice, the businesses that are the best educators will be the most successful in 2014. Out of those that are here tonight, who considers their business and the role and the responsibility of educating your potential clients and clients? Who kind of takes an educational responsibility and a consultative role? Very good. For those of you that haven't gotten to that place yet, think about all of the questions that your customers ask you and your potential customers ask you. Log them, brainstorm them, go through your CRM system, go through your ticketing system, go through your email inbox, put together a spreadsheet of all of those questions. It might be 50 questions, 100 questions, 200 questions, whatever it is, and then systematically, one by one, tackle each and every one of those in a separate blog post in 2014, and that alone will be an enormous content magnet to draw highly qualified leads to your website. Next up, Sarah Papachristos. Sarah is the head of the HubSpot User Group program. Sarah, again, comes from running a HubSpot user group up in New Hampshire and the HubSpot partner world. She joined HubSpot in this role earlier this spring. There's 70 HubSpot user groups now, and I'm willing to bet 12 months from now you're going to see a huge increase in that number. They're doing great things. Sarah's strategy, and she's an extension of Mark's team on the HubSpot customer marketing side, is when you're planning your 2014 inbound strategy, always solve for the customer. And you can see hashtag SFTC. What does that mean? Always think about what is best for your customer and work backwards. And if you think about the inbound methodology where we look at attract, convert, close, and delight, solving for the customer starts at delight and works backwards. What do we need to do to get delighted customers? What do we need to do to convert our leads into customers? What do we need to do to attract the right website visitors? Solve for the customer. Who here feels that they have a pretty good handle on what their customers really need? Who here after tonight is going to go back and make it a priority to survey and talk to some of their customers so they can find out what they really need to do with their content next year to move the needle? Some food for thought.
I would pause you on that. There are customers who don't know what they need. They know what they want, and they're not necessarily correct when they think what they want is what they need. They may be wrong, and that's a challenge.
Absolutely, and that's an excellent point. Good reason to use a consultative sales process to really understand what their pain points are, what their behaviors are, what their goals are, and guide them through it. And that's a great part with HubSpot is, a lot of times when you're talking to a potential client and you feel like they're not telling you the whole story, or you feel like they're leaving some information out because they feel they're going to lose their leverage. The cool part with HubSpot is once they convert on your website, you know every single blog post they read. You know every time they came back to your website. You know every landing page that they converted on. If you're using the Wistia integration, you know every video that they watched and how much of that video they watched. You know if they hit your pricing page, how many times they hit your pricing page. You know that they hit your pricing page on Thanksgiving, when instead of spending time with their friends and family, that's a pretty intensely motivated prospect. So the lead intelligence that you can get there is tremendously valuable. And just like Warren said, it will help you uncover their problems that they may not even be sharing with you because they may not be able to articulate it at that level. They may not be able to synthesize it. But in the case of technology, for example, if they read 37 different blog posts that have to do with firewall security, you can bet that the salesperson that's talking to them is going to steer the conversation to their pain points and their concerns about firewall security. So next up, we're going to switch over from the HubSpotters to the HubSpot partners. This is Julie Vetter, co-founder of Point Moon Marketing in Paris. She also runs the HubSpot Paris user group. I actually came to meet Julie when researching this presentation and introduced her to Antoine. I thought they may have some interesting things to talk about. And what Julie had to say is to integrate inbound marketing from social to sales to customer service using social inbox. Social inbox is that tool I was mentioning before. You can kind of take that giant fire hose of information coming at you from Twitter and be able to really highlight and zero in on the tweets that are coming from customers and from people that are on different segmented lists within HubSpot. So integrate inbound marketing from social to sales to customer service using social inbox, with the trend being that customers and businesses will find more and more seamless to stay engaged as they switch from in-person encounters to sharing on social and by phone. How many of you currently have customers that talk about your businesses on social media? How many of you think that your customers may be talking about your business on social media and you're just not aware that they are? How many people think that there are people talking to your competitors on social media about problems that you could also be solving for them in lieu of your competitors? These are some of the reasons why it pays to pay attention to your brand name, your company leaders' names, your competitors' names, and generic non-branded search terms that have to do with your industry, with your main keywords and the main pain points that people are talking about. Next up, Carol Mahoney, founder of Mahoney Internet Marketing. She also leads the HubSpot user group in Portland, Maine. I actually interviewed Carol for one of our podcasts earlier this fall. Carol had some very simple advice. When buyers find you, follow their process. When a potential customer comes to you and they're telling you what you need to do to convert them from a lead to a customer, don't ignore that advice. If they're giving you precious information like that, follow their advice. Next up, Dan Krause, president of Leading Results in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dan specializes in a similar niche that we do, B2B technology and software companies. And Dan's advice was to look at your content and make sure you have a great recipe for repurposing. It's a huge, huge productivity boost. If you can look at all the existing content that you have and figure out ways to recycle it. It's kind of a green angle to creating content. So if you have a blog, can you turn that blog into a podcast? If you have a webinar, can you get it transcribed and turn that into a series of blog posts? All the different ways that you can transform one type of content into another format to save a lot of time. So Dan's advice, look at your content, make sure you have a great recipe for how you repurpose and re-promote your content as many ways as possible. Less content and more formats plus more promotion equals greater productivity. For example, what we'll do is we'll take a blog post, turn it into a presentation deck, put it on SlideShare. We'll narrate that blog post using the blog post as a script side by side with the presentation, and now you have a Camtasia video and put that on YouTube. So you took one piece of content and very easily put it in 2 additional places. The cool part with that, how many people here do not have tens of thousands of links that point to their website, that just maybe have a few dozen or a few hundred? What's the biggest challenge when you only have a few dozen or a few hundred links? Is that you write on all these keywords and you can have these fantastic blog posts, and unfortunately a lot of them will not make it to page 1 on their own without a lot of social sharing, without some link building, without some authoritative sites linking to you. Developing presentations and putting them on SlideShare, developing videos and putting them on YouTube gives you a second chance to make it to page 1, and that's exactly what Dan is talking about. Very, very powerful advice to concentrate on in 2014. We've done a lot of that at SP Home Run. I'm happy to talk to you more about that if you need some tools and recommendations. Another piece of advice to concentrate on with inbound in 2014, Howard Lothrop of Echo Partners in Germantown, Tennessee had this to say: don't be afraid to combine inbound with outbound follow-up. Using inbound marketing doesn't mean you have to forget everything that you know about traditional, conventional, brick-and-mortar kind of marketing. You can combine inbound marketing with direct mail. You can combine inbound marketing with trade shows. You can combine inbound marketing with targeted phone campaigns. There's a lot of different ways to integrate inbound marketing into other forms of more traditional, more conventional types of marketing. And Howard, by the way, is very active on the HubSpot forums. Another plug I want to give to a great tool and resource if you're currently a HubSpot customer. Go to the Academy menu, click on Forms. It's a great place to share best practices, bounce ideas off of other HubSpot customers. Along the same lines, HubSpot Academy also has a tremendous LinkedIn group that I highly recommend. Has about 4,000 or 5,000 members, and I originally met Howard a couple years ago through the HubSpot customer forums. Robin Anderson, a marketing consultant with the Sarah Resources in San Francisco, suggested that everyone begin with an editorial calendar. How many people here have ever taken a journalism class or worked for a student newspaper, or worked for a magazine? How many people have that kind of background? I think we had someone here who before was a West Boca News. Think like a publisher. Think about putting together an editorial calendar so you plan out all of your story ideas in advance. Focus your content on buyer personas. How many here are currently using buyer personas to make their marketing more specific and resonate more? What buyer personas are fictional representations of your ideal buyers, their pain points, their goals, and their behaviors. It's kind of getting inside what really makes them tick, and by speaking their language and zeroing in on their highest priorities, you really resonate, you really stand out from the crowd, you differentiate from your competitors, and your content is all that more powerful. See what trigger points engage visitors and convert leads. HubSpot has some great tools in there. The page performance tool, the conversion assist report can be very, very powerful in helping you uncover what it's going to take to convert more website visitors into leads and more leads into customers. Stephen Plotkin of Indigo Inbound in Reading, the United Kingdom, suggested that you take your blog, you add a call to action, a CTA, drive from the CTA to a landing page for some kind of premium content offer. Embedded in that landing page, you'll have a form where you're asking at the absolute minimum for first, last, and email address. As inbound marketers, you definitely want to be asking for more, so you have a better idea on who they really are. Just getting a first, last, and a free mail address like a Google or Yahoo or Hotmail is not going to tell you very much. But the basic idea is drive from your blog, put a call to action in those blog posts, drive to a landing page with a form, and then promote the heck out of those landing pages using email marketing, your in-house database, using social media, so that you generate new leads. And Stephen was very emphatic about making sure that I tell you after you're done with that process to rock on and have a great time. Because that's a lot of what inbound marketing is all about. It's not just about having fun. It's about getting great results, generating more highly qualified leads, converting more customers, and generating more ROI for your company, for your organization. Coming down the home stretch here, just across the other side, just a little east over in Ireland, Susan Bork of the Product Launch Method in Sligo, Ireland, suggested taking action daily. How many have a daily workout routine? It's kind of similar with inbound. You want to make inbound a part of your daily routine. Constantly think of methods. Your tweets, your blog posts, your emails to alert people to your business and drive eyeballs to your website. Get the correct mindset to be an inbound marketer. Susan Nixon, Strategy Lead of Element 3. They're a big HubSpot partner agency in Indianapolis. I believe they won Partner Agency of the Year a year or two ago. Suggested that you increase the people, look to other people in your company to involve them in your blogging. Increase blogging team participation. So if you're a company of 5, you may be the primary blogger, but there's a good chance that there's other people in your company that can help with the blog in some way, shape, or form. Make it a rewarding experience for your employees, your team, and your organization using gamification. Make it fun, make it competitive, and rewards. Understand that hard work and solid content strategy supports the business goals. How many people currently have more than one person in their company that blogs? Does it make it a little easier? Do whatever you can to try to encourage, even if you're doing 3/4 of the heavy lifting and they're doing 1/4 of it. If most people, if you really sit down and coach them on what it takes to blog, or if you interview them and get that interview transcribed and you turn that Q&A into a blog post, there's a lot of different ways to involve different thought leaders within your company, and it can really move the needle on making your content more interesting, more varied, more engaging, and take a little bit of the workload off yourself. Also, do not be afraid to use freelancers. We could actually have a whole separate section on best practices for using freelance writers. And our final bonus tip, this is actually tip number 15, comes to us from Douglas Burnett, who is the owner of the Artillery LLC agency in the Norfolk, Virginia area. He also leads the Hampton Roads HubSpot user group. And Douglas's suggestion was to be successful in inbound marketing. Remember that all of your prospects listen to the exact same radio station. WIIM. What's in it for me? I want to give special thanks to Mark Lehman and Caffeine Spaces for hosting us for this evening's event. Everyone, please give Mark a round of applause. He's got a tremendous place here. If you're currently working out of your home and feeling like the walls are getting a little too tight and you want to get out among human people and get some great interaction and great networking, especially if you do something tech and creative, definitely talk to Mark. And a special thanks to HubSpot for sponsoring this evening, especially Sarah Papa Christos. Your call to action. How could I possibly end anything having to do with inbound marketing without having a call to action? By the way, if you do webinars, if you do ebooks, if you do any kind of content, always make sure that you have a call to action at the end. Your call to action is to tweet which of these 14 tips that you like the best using the Boca Hug hashtag. As you're going around and networking with other attendees tonight's meeting, make sure that you share your favorite inbound marketing tip with at least 3 people. Here before you leave, how many people here have a favorite tip that they currently use with content marketing or inbound marketing? Pick people's brains. Most people know a lot more than they realize. And make inbound marketing a priority for 2014. For more information, the slide deck from tonight's presentation will be posted up to all Boca Hug social media, especially the Twitter profiles. Make sure that you follow at Boca Hug on Twitter. Make sure you join our LinkedIn group. It's the Boca Raton HubSpot user group on LinkedIn. There's also a South Florida HubSpot user group, and we'll be cross-promoting the other. Yes, that is an airplane. We're right next to the Boca Raton airport. The frequency actually slows down this time of night during the day. It's more frequent. So there's a South Florida HubSpot user group LinkedIn. There's a South Florida HubSpot user group LinkedIn group. There's also a Boca Raton HubSpot user group, and we'll be, as we grow more HubSpot user groups throughout South Florida. You'll see those there. If you have friends, family members, colleagues, coworkers, and other parts of the country, and they're curious about content and inbound marketing, tell them to look and see if there's a HubSpot user group in their area. Definitely like our Facebook page, and make sure that you registered on Eventbrite so we can email you about our future upcoming meeting notices. If you want to follow me, feel free to follow me on Twitter, Joshua_Feinberg. Also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That brings us to the end of tonight's presentation. I want to give you all a big round of applause for coming out to tonight's meeting. I appreciate everyone coming out. I know it's the 6-day weekend, as a lot of people have expected. I know we have a lot of competition from Cyber Monday. I know a few people that are here are even working on campaigns for Cyber Monday, so definitely appreciate you coming out, and look forward to hearing how all of you plan to implement inbound and content marketing more successfully in your businesses in 2014. Thank you.